Good morning everybody, what's happening? Today I'm going to show you how to take out the idle control valve on an M54 engine. Okay, so right now you're looking at the DISA valve right here on the intake manifold. Now in order to access the idle control valve, we're going to need to remove that so we can get everything out of the way. So first let's unplug our DISA valve. And you're going to need a T40 socket to remove two bolts that secure that DISA valve to the intake. Here's the first one we're going to remove. And there's one more located down here. Okay, so here's the DISA valve removed from the intake, and this smells very strongly of gasoline. Okay, so our idle control valve is located right here, right below this opening. And here's our intake boot elbow. We have a hose clamp to remove here, some brackets. We're going to unplug the valve. There's a plug right here. And then we can remove it from the car to clean it. Now that we've loosened the hose clamp, we can slide the rubber boot off of the end of the idle control valve. Now I always just loosen the hose clamp all the way and slide it down. That way we don't drop it. And we have enough clearance for this rubber to expand as it's coming over the lip on the edge of the idle control valve. Now we can just slide this elbow right off. Now there's a pin right here we'll push, and then we'll slide this plug backwards towards the front of the car to disconnect it. We have two more T40 bolts located here and here to remove from the bracket. And remove the 10mm nut located here. Now we can remove the idle control valve from the car. Now keep in mind you're going to have to use some force because the other end of this idle control valve is still connected in a rubber boot on the other side. So you're going to have to push it at an angle, use quite a bit of force, slowly and carefully, wiggle it back and forth until it pulls out. Okay, and here is what this entire idle unit looks like. Now of course we're going to have to fit this back to the underside of the intake manifold, but let's pull this off and then we're going to clean everything out inside here. Inside of our valve body here, this gets full of carbon, it gets all gummed up, and that's what we're going to need to clean out so that it functions properly. So we're going to use some carb clean inside here, clean this out and lubricate it, and then install this whole thing back into the car. Now I'll put a link for a new idle control valve and the cleaner I'm going to use to clean this old one in the description below. Okay, here's our valve. Let's pull this guy off. Okay, so I've just finished cleaning this valve, and as you can hear and see, that valve is opening and closing now when we shake it. When I first took this out of the car, it made zero noise and that valve inside was seized. It was not opening and closing as it should have been. Now that controls the air and fuel mixture when you first start up the car. And it was either stuck open or stuck closed, which I believe was causing the check engine light we were seeing. That was the rich condition on bank 2 of this car. Okay, let's put this guy back on. Now we can put this guy back into the car. And here's a close-up just in case you are wondering what it looks like underneath the intake manifold. So right here, this is where our adhesive valve goes, and this hole in the back there, that's where the other end of our idle control valve plugs into. Alright, let's put this guy back into the car. You can also put some lubricant on here so it slides in nicely back into the intake manifold. Now just wiggle the valve around back and forth until we're 100% positive that this is flush on the back side of the intake manifold. We don't want any vacuum leaks, so take your time with this step. You can also plug the idle control valve back in, and we'll reinstall some of those T40 Torx bolts. And let's reconnect that intake boot to the idle control valve. Okay, let's finish tightening down our brackets. And we have that 10mm nut on the bracket here. And finally, we'll reinstall our adhesive valve. And install the two T40 bolts that secure it into place. And be sure not to tighten this too tight or else you'll crack the plastic. And finally, reconnect the harness connector. As always guys, thank you so much for watching and supporting this channel. If this video helped you out today, please smash that like button and subscribe.